It's my all-time favorite tea. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's video. I'm so happy you guys are here. Today I will be addressing a pretty important topic in my life, and it is basically how to take steps on a day-to-day basis to empower yourself. Self-empowerment is the absolute key tool to be able to create consistency over a long spread of time. You guys know my thoughts on consistency already. Today I will be sharing some of my ways that I empower myself on a day-to-day basis. I will also be touching on why I think self-empowerment is absolute key and how outsourcing it from your environment is ultimately not sustainable. And we will get into that later, but now I am actually heading to the water. We're gonna go take a dip. It is autumn here, even if it doesn't look like it. It's getting pretty icy outside now. I've got this like very fluffy, voluptuous sweater on. So without further ado, let's get into the video. I look forward to sharing my day with you guys on self-empowerment and why in the first place I actually make sure to do these types of things, because it's not always comfortable working with self-empowerment. So let's get into it. I thought I would touch on how self-empowerment is something that comes from deep within, and a lot of the time I think we source empowerment from external places, so we are ultimately depending on our environment. Let me show you. This is a sign. This is a sign of autumn. It is coming. It's on its way. I'm not sure if I'm using the right wording, but I would like to say that this is why self-empowerment to me is so important. Like, implementing small things on a day-to-day basis that are quite challenging, but they convince me enough that I'm actually capable of doing difficult things without having any external pressure or anything in my environment that is inspiring me to do it, but more so that inspiration comes from me. Hello! Okay, we have arrived. This is one of the things that I do quite frequently to basically make sure that I suffer and struggle. No, I'm just kidding, but not really. I've never really liked cold water, and so showing up on a weekly basis or sometimes even a day-to-day basis, having a plunge in the Baltic is a great way to sort of just challenge my body. And there are lots of health benefits to cold dips. I know it doesn't look cold here right now. It looks like it's a beautiful summer's day, but the water is freaking icy. It's probably somewhere between I would say like 12 to 14 degrees Celsius. And so for somebody like me who really doesn't like cold water, this is pretty freaking cold. Doing this, there are a lot of health benefits to it. It will boost your circulation. It will kind of wake you up and make you feel fresh for the rest of the day. But it also builds that inner sort of character of like, damn, I went and did the thing that like I've dreaded, which I mean, since I woke up this morning, I knew that like, damn, I'm gonna have to go up and get into cold water. So let's get in the bath. Let's get in the water. Ooh, let's do it. Get in the water, get in the water. Ah, this is like not gonna be very pleasant. Seriously. I know it looks like it might be. It's not. It's been raining here several days as well, so anyway. I mean, it always feels so good when I'm done, but like when I'm in it, it's like, no, man.
That was very refreshing, but very uncomfortable. We're gonna run to the store quick, get some bananas, maybe make some breakfast, and then we're gonna head into town to the next part of this self-empowerment video. We just bumped into Frida. Hey, Frida. Hey. I really need a tripod. Okay, I think this is gonna work.
Something that you have to do, it's just become part of your routine. Alright guys, we are at the gym now. I'm going to put in a quick little glute session because I feel like I have only targeted glutes once this week, so it's time to get going. I will include you guys on a little bit of my session just to give you guys an idea of what it is that I do. Alrighty then, I will just briefly run you through some of the things that I do to stay empowered. It's not always easy out there, guys. Like, you're gonna have times where you are really struggling to find inspiration, consistency. You are going to struggle with your own level of awareness, and so I just want to touch on a couple of things here. I mean, let's be honest, with social media just constantly pumping us with content and we're always comparing ourselves left and right. Having some main pillars to just ground me and help reinforce positive thinking. Yeah, this is like basically how I've worked with self-empowerment, and so I just want to share a couple of pointers with you guys. When it comes to self-empowerment, it's very closely tied to self-awareness. Self-awareness is the act of understanding what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are, your values, your beliefs, and with increased self-awareness comes increased confidence in who you are and what it is that you're doing. And when you are self-aware, you can also be more informed about where you are going, why you are going there, what kind of goals you've set out, why you've set out those goals to maintain motivation. Self-awareness is something that you can fully cultivate throughout your entire life. This isn't something that you're just born with or you're not. Like, you can practice this. And there are some amazing tools like meditation, journaling, going out into nature, getting used to actually listening to yourself more rather than just having constant distractions and conversations with other people and taking in other people's thoughts and feelings and placing all of the other opinions on pedestals but not your own. These types of practices will help create more self-awareness, and I think that, like I said, even if you do have parents that have reinforced this positive thinking when it comes to, or even if you've had parents that think it's important that you value your own views and takes on the world and your own beliefs, you still need to practice. Like, I've had to practice self-awareness pretty much every single minute of my freaking life. So with that said, once you have a level of self-awareness, you need to set some goals, and not just any goals. You need to set very tangible goals that you've broken down into bite-sized pieces where you can actually measure your progress on a day-to-day basis. And it becomes very easy for you to validate your ability to actually move forward, and that creates self-empowerment. So it could be very, very simple things. It could be like eating healthy. Sometimes people set goals and they push them so far into the future that they really just do not have to grapple with them at the moment. So they'll just say like, well, in 10 years from now, I want to run a successful company and I want to have a mansion. Like, that's definitely the types of goals that I've heard some people put out there. And I'm like, sure, definitely. But the problem is you won't create any consistency because you don't really have the steps in order to get to where you want to go, which means that it's very difficult for you to measure progress, and then you can't really self-validate on a day-to-day basis, and then you might get demotivated and then you just flip-flop on yourself pretty much. So what I mean about this is like gradual progress is the key. Finding achievable outcomes within a digestible time period is a really good way of creating validation for yourself and then being able to empower yourself to move forward. And even if you're having a bad day, you still know what you need to do tomorrow. It's not like you have this huge mountain to climb and you don't even know the way. With that said, there's another element to this, and that is positive self-talk, right? Positive self-talk, we hear about it all the time. Just be positive. Now, to me, this ties very closely into self-awareness. Positive self-talk is about understanding that your thoughts create feelings, and you have the power to change the way that you feel about things. This is super powerful, and I'm gonna get to what I mean about this, because no, it's not about bypassing. It's about actually being extremely present with everything that you're feeling. What I mean by this is, if you are having a negative thought about something, oh, I feel like I'm not gonna succeed at this exam that's coming on Tuesday. That thought leads to a feeling of like, oh, I'm really, really anxious and scared what people are gonna think about me if I fail. If you can choose to be present in that moment in time with that feeling and that thought and find acceptance with it, it will transmute. When the feeling transmutes over time, what I mean is you start to get familiar with it. You're like, can I sit here and be present without actually placing any value on it? Because the problem is when we start to feel scared about things, then we place value on it. We're like, oh, I feel scared. That must mean that this is serious. This means that I have to take this seriously. This means that I have to act on it maybe. If you can just be present with your feeling instead and decide for yourself, I'm gonna give this 5 minutes. I'm just gonna be present. I'm not going to place any sort of judgment onto this feeling. Your body is gonna become familiar with the feeling, and it's going to realize that, wait a minute, this isn't really a threat. A lot of the pain that we experience in fear comes from resistance. It's the resistance of us judging a feeling and wanting to act. It creates like this, tug of war sort of internally. It's just the survival mechanism in me that caused me to freak out about it. And once you have been present and accepted the thought and the feeling, you can choose to tell yourself a different story. Our brains are always coming up with narratives and stories, and they might not always be the most serving stories. These could be terrible stories like,
you're gonna fail, so there's no point in even trying because you're just gonna waste your time.
These types of stories go on and on and on in my mind, and being able to be present with my thoughts that create feelings and then change the narrative and the story behind the way that I feel about it. Like, oh, I'm gonna be self-compassionate in this situation instead. Like just changing the story entirely rather than having this crazy story of like, well, I'm gonna die if I fail the test tomorrow. Creating positive self-talk isn't really as easy as it sounds all the time. You can't just slap a ton of jam on top of toast and try to cover all of your negative feelings up. You need to be very present with your feelings in order to transmute them and then choose a story that is better serving. And the more often that you choose better stories that reinforce positive thinking, the more you start to train this muscle and you start to think positive more often. It becomes a default to think positively. One more thing that I have been doing to work with self-empowerment is to embrace failure and discomfort and understand that it is a path to learning, and learning is what we need to do to grow. Even if it's uncomfortable and scary to be wrong, I think it's super important to meet it head on rather than fear it and create resistance. So if I have to do 100 sales calls, if I have the mindset that out of these 100 sales calls, I have to nail 3 of them, I have to have 3 clients by the end of it, I'm gonna feel so stressed about getting those 3 clients. I won't be able to be present. I'll be afraid that, I won't wind up with that outcome at the end. If I have the perspective of going into these calls and being like, I want to fail at 150 calls today, what that's gonna do is I'm setting the bar really low for myself. I'm creating consistency. I'm not as scared. And ultimately, if I wind up getting a client 2 or 3, I'll be able to be a lot more present and learn in those situations. Whereas if I'm actually forcing and feeling like stressed to land a client. If I want to embrace discomfort by getting into a cold bath, if I go into the mindset that I want to have 2 minutes of suffering, I want to have 2 minutes of pain, when I get into the water, it's not bad at all. It feels quite nice even. It feels like I'm achieving something by being there. If we can change the narrative in our mind, and by doing so, we start to embrace failures, we start to embrace discomfort more, we will be able to absorb a lot more lessons there, we'll be able to absorb and be a lot more present. And with that, we will gain empowerment, right? Because we're getting through things quite effortlessly. It does feel a little counterintuitive, but these are some of the things that I have been doing quite frequently to build self-empowerment, because I think that a lot of the time we are reaching for things around us. We need to feel inspired. We need to have a conversation with the right person. We need to have this mentor. Instead of realizing that you have everything within you. So with that said, everybody, I am actually going to call it a day. I'm posting meditation yoga videos as well in the upcoming weeks, so stay tuned for that if you want a little bit of guidance on your path to self-awareness, but also to a more productive sort of everyday life. I just want to share my experience so that we can kind of grow together. I think that this is a really good way for me to stay accountable and stay consistent as well, is recording these videos and showing up every week, making sure that you guys stay in the loop with how things are going on my side. So with that said, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your week. Really deserve all of the blessings that are coming your way. You are just this lovely creature, and I'm sending you so much love, and thank you so much for being here.